Welcome and thank you for accessing this presentation. My name is Inay Morales Chavez, and I am a PhD student at the Mexican Petroleum Institute. I will be presenting our recent research on modeling and simulation of NMR-based for size distribution in porous media. This work was conducted in collaboration with the Mexican Petroleum Institute, the Brazilian Center of Research in Energy and Materials, and the University of Sao Paulo. This is part of a collaborative effort to improve our understanding of pore-scale structures using NMR relaxometry, mathematical modeling, and numerical simulation techniques. I hope the material presented here proves insightful and relevant to your interest. Now, let's look at the structure of this presentation. First, I will introduce the fundamentals of NMR relaxometry and explain how it helps us to characterize porous media. Next, we will delve into the mathematical and numerical model that we developed. Then we move on to validation, where we compare our numerical results with well-established semi-analytical solutions. And following that, I will present the results and discussion, which include both synthetic test and experimental comparison with data from various ensemble. And finally, I will summarize our main conclusions and mention some ideas for future work that could extend to more complex scenarios. So let's begin. Nuclear magnetic resonance relaxometry is a non-invasive technique that allows to prove the internal structure of porous media by analyzing the relaxation behavior of hydrogen protons in the saturating fluid. When we apply an external field and an excitation pulse, we obtain what is known as the free induction decay signal. This signal contains valuable information about the transverse relaxation times, commonly referred to as T2. Under some assumptions, such as uniform and dominant surface relaxivity and negligible diffusion coupling, T2 values can be correlated to the pore sizes. This forms the basis for using NMR data to infer the pore size distribution, or PSD. The evolution of magnetization in such systems is governed by the Bloch-Torrey equation, a partial differential equation that describes how the density magnetization vectors evolves in both time and space. The equation accounts for several effects: the precision of spins in an external magnetic field, the bulk relaxation processes, molecular diffusion, and, in general, an advective flow. Formally, the Bloch-Torrey equation is shown in equation 1. This is a vector value continuity equation with both source and sink terms. Consequently, the total magnetization can be expressed as the integral of the density magnetization over the domain. The model can be simplified by assuming no external free gradients, no advective transport, isotropic and homogeneous diffusion, and dominant transverse bulk relaxation through T2 bulk. These assumptions, the equations simplify significantly to equation number 3. The initial condition assumes uniform saturation magnetization at time 0, and the boundary condition is of the Robin type, incorporating surface relaxivity rho. In porous media, we typically deal with a distribution of pore sizes, not just a simple representative value. Assuming a weak coupling between pores and a constant surface relaxivity, the total transverse magnetization can be approximated as the sum of independent exponential decays, each associated with a specific pore size. Mathematically, this is expressed in equation 6. This relation reveals that T2 is inversely proportional to the surface to volume ratio of each pore. To analyze the complete distribution of T2 relaxation times, we transition from this discrete form to a continuous model, resulting in a Fredholm integral equation of the first kind presented in equation 7. Here, f of T2 is the distribution function of transverse relaxation times. Solving this integral equation to recover f2 from the measured signal is a classic ill-positive inverse problem. Under the assumption that surface relaxation dominates and that bulk relaxation and diffusion effects can be neglected, there exists a direct linear relationship between the relaxation time T2 and the pore radius R, shown in equation 8. This simple transformation allows to map the T2 distributions into a PSD. This approach is widely used in NMR logging and rock analysis because of simplicity. However, it's important to note that this method assumes an idealized scenario in which surface relaxation is the only relaxation mechanism acting on the system. In practice, this assumption may not hold, as diffusion coupling between surface and bulk relaxation mechanisms can become significant. In reality, diffusion within the pore space creates a coupling between surface and bulk relaxation mechanisms. This coupling can significantly alter the observed relaxation behavior and may lead to systematic underestimation of pore sizes, if not properly accounted for. For this reason, it's critical to include the bulk relaxation term explicitly in both the forward model and the Fredholm integral kernel, used to inversion to ensure a physical consistent estimation of the pore size distribution. Let's now move on to the mathematical model used to simulate the magnetization behavior within individual pores. Under weak pore coupling, meaning that pore throats are small and act as diffusion sinks, we can assume that each pore behaves as an isolated relaxation domain. Furthermore, we consider spherical geometry and radial symmetry, which allows to simplify the block-Torre equation to a one-dimensional form in spherical coordinates. The resulting equation is the equation number 9. The initial condition assumes uniform saturation, and we now apply a Robin boundary condition at outer surface and a new Neumann boundary condition at the center of the pore. Finally, the total transverse magnetization of a single pore is computed by integrating over the spherical volume. Now, we extend this model from an individual pore to an entire pore population, assuming that the medium consists of a distribution of non-interacting spherical pores. The total magnetization is the superposition of each individual contribution. The resulting expression for the global NMR signal becomes an equation number 14. Here, phi is the pore size distribution function, which reflects how many pores of radius Ri are present, and capital M is the total magnetization for a single pore of radius Ri at the time t, as computed for the previous slide, and ms is the saturation magnetization. This formulation forms the forward model that connects the unknown PSD to the measurable signal. However, in order to extract the pore distribution from experimental data, we must invert the signal equation. This is challenging because the Fredholm integral is highly sensitive to noise and ill-posed in nature. To improve stability and account for bulk relaxation, we apply a variable transformation to modify the kernel and a change variable for the distribution function. Specifically, we define a new variable shown in equation number 16. This transforms the signal into equation 15, where zeta 0 and zeta f correspond to the smallest and largest pore radii. The distribution phi prime is a relaxation rate weight pore size distribution defined as equation 18. This transformation ensures that both diffusion and bulk relaxation mechanisms are properly incorporated into the kernel and the distribution function. This is a crucial step for obtaining physically accurate pore size distributions from NMR data. To solve the block-Torre equation in spherical coordinates, numerically, we implement a finite element method, which is well suited for problems with complex boundary conditions. In our formulation, we discretize the spatial domain using finite elements, and for the time-dependent term, we employ an implicit Euler scheme. This scheme is unconditional stable and particularly effective for diffusion-dominant problems like the one at hand. The variational formulation for model involves two components, a linear form and a linear form, which are shown in equation 19 and 20, respectively. An important advantage of our approach is transformation to one-dimensional spherical coordinates. This is This not only captures the essential physics of radial diffusion in pores, but also reduces the number of degrees of freedom in the finite element mesh, leading to a significant reduction in computational cost without compromising accuracy. This equation were implemented using the Phoenix project, an open source platform that improves a high level Python interface for finite element discretization and automated solution of partial differential equations. Overall, this approach allows us to efficiently simulate the magnetization decay within individual pores and ultimately to construct a forward model that can be used for stable and accurate immersion. To validate the numerical implementation, we compare our finite element result with the semi-analytical solution originally proposed by Bronstein and Tarr and later extended by Davis. In this framework, the magnetization decay is a spherical pore is expressed as a sum of exponential modes shown in equation number 21. Each mode is associated with a distinct transverse relaxation time T2I, determined by both the pore radius and the diffusion relaxation coupling. The time constants are given by equation 22. Here, epsilon are the positive roots of the transcendental equation number 23. The relative intensity of each mode is given by the function in equation 24. A key parameter in this theory is the dimensionless Bronstein and Tarr number presented in equation 25. This number quantifies the relative strength of surface relaxation between diffusion within a pore. It helps categorize the system into different diffusion regimes: fast, intermediate, slow diffusion regimes. An alternative, more conservative classification proposed by Ryu defines the fast diffusion regime as lower than 0.1. This number provides physical insights into how diffusion influences relaxation and help predict where deviation from simplified models are likely to occur. In this figure, we compare the numerical solution obtained using FEM against the semi-analytical Bronstein and Tarr solution for a range of pore size between 5 and 300 microns. The parameters used in simulation are typical values for still water and various sandstone. On the left, we observe a strong agreement between the numerical and semi-analytical curves. On the right, we quantified the absolute and relative errors, which remain low across most pore sizes. This confirms that the finite element formulation accurately captures the magnetization decay behavior across a broad range of geometries. In this second comparison, we analyzed the T2 relaxation times as a function of pore radius. The semi-analytical solution is shown in orange and the numerical model in blue. As we can see, the results remain in close agreement up to pore radius of around 125 microns. Beyond that point, small deviation emerged, particularly outside the classical fast diffusion regime, as indicated in the vertical red dashed line. The error plot on the right confirms that both absolute and relative errors increase as we approach the slow diffusion regime. This observation highlights the importance of modeling both diffusion and surface relaxation effects concurrently, specifically for larger pores. To further evaluate the performance of the model, we construct a set of synthetic pore size distribution using a bimodal Gaussian approach. This formulation enabled us to represent porous media with multiple domain pore scales, which is typically in natural formations such as sandstones. Mathematically, the distribution is defined as equation 26, where A represents the proportion of the distribution, N is a normal distribution, mu is the mean, and sigma is the standard deviation. This figure illustrates a set of synthetic pore size distribution with radii ranging from approximately 2.5 microns to 10 microns. Different proportions of the two Gaussian modes were used to test the model sensitivity to overlapping peaks and varying amplitudes. This distribution serves as the ground truth for our inversion test in the next slides. Here, We compared the T2 distributions obtained using two distinct approaches. The blue dashed line corresponds to the T2 estimated by the straightforward model, and the green dashed line corresponds to the solution of the Fredholm integral equation. As we can see, the classical linear model tends to smooth out features and underestimate the presence of large pores, particularly due to the lack of diffusion and bulk relaxation corrections. And in the next figure, we directly compare the original synthetic pore size distribution with the reconstructed distribution from the two inversion approaches. The red line represents the original bimodal distribution used to generate the signal. The dotted green line is the result of the direct T2 to radius conversion, and the blue dashed line is the output of our proposed inversion model. It's clear that the proposed model more accurately matches for both the location and the amplitude of the two peaks. In contrast, the classical method oversmooth distribution and underestimate the contribution of large pores. The result demonstrated our approach leads to more faithful recovery of the pore size distribution, especially in heterogeneous or bimodal systems. After validating the model with synthetic data, we proceed to test our approach using real experimental data from various sandstone. While the studio Porous rock commonly used as a benchmark in petrophysical research. The micro-CT scans were performed on a 10 millimeter cylindrical plug using 2.25 micrometers of resolution. From the segmented 3D volume, analyzing over a cropped region of 800 voxels, we extracted the pore networks and used the pore radius as the main parameter for comparison with NMR. The parameter of interest selected for the micro-CT data is the pore radius. So on the left, we see the pore distribution obtained from the micro-CT image analysis. The distribution is expressed in terms of volumetric probability, allowing for a direct comparison with NMR-derived results. On the right, we show the computed Bronsted and Tarn number for each pore identified in the micro-CT dataset. This plot reveals the range of diffusion regimes presented in the various sample, highlighting that the pore remains in the classical diffusion regime. Also, the limit proposed by Ryu is shown. This kind of information is crucial for selecting an appropriate forward model for inversion and understanding the limitation of classical T2-based methods. The NMR experiments were carried out on a large core plug, measuring 3.81 centimeters in diameter and height. A low-field magnet operating at 0.047 Tesla was used, corresponding to a resonance frequency of 2 megahertz for hydrogen nuclei. The pulse sequence was the standard CPMG sequence with an echo time of 200 microseconds. The signal-to-noise ratio was approximately 660, and the surface relaxivity was set to 30 microns per second. The surface relaxivity was estimated by comparing the maximum peak of the pore distribution with the T2 distribution, resulting in a consistent value reported for various sandstone. These experimental conditions were used to acquire the FID signal, which serves as an input for our numerical inversion and pore size estimation. On the left, we show the measured FID signal obtained from the various sandstone core, and this is the raw magnetization decay curve using an ore inversion procedure. On the right, we compare the pore size distribution estimated from NMR against the reference distribution from micro-CT. The micro-CT based distribution is shown in gray, while NMR-derived distribution is shown in red. As the figure shows, there is a strong agreement between both results, and then we compare the numerical simulations of decay with the semi-analytical solution for various sandstone sample. On the left, We observe an excellent match between the curves, confirming that our finite element implementation remains accurate even when applied to experimentally measured pore geometries. The result strengthens the validity of our modeling approach and support its use in realistic pore systems. To conclude the results section, we present a comparative analysis of the pore size distribution obtaining using different methodologies. The proposed model shown here produced the most accurate fit to the reference data, capturing both the position and amplitude of key features in the distribution. In contrast, traditional methods that relied on a linear T2 to radius relationship tend to underestimate the amplitude for large pores and oversimplify the structure of the distribution. These findings reinforce the importance of incorporating bulk relaxation, diffusion effects, and variable transformation into the inversion process, even under the assumption of classical fast diffusion regime. To summarize the main conclusions for this work, first, we shown that assuming spherical symmetry and performing a coordinate transformation can significantly simplify the block-Torrey equation, allowing for faster and more efficient computation. Second, we demonstrate that explicitly incorporating transverse bulk relaxation is critical for obtaining accurate pore size distribution. Third, the finite element method proved to be a robust tool for solving the diffusion relaxation equation in porous geometries. Fourth, by modifying the kernel in the Fredholm integral equation through a variable change, we improve the stability and accuracy for the inversion from T2 to directly PSD. Finally, we highlighted the model's strengths through validation against both synthetic and experimental data, showing that our approach outperforms traditional methods. Future research may extend this work to more complex geometries, anisotropic diffusion condition, and heterogeneous surface relaxivity. I put here some reference. And thank you very much for your attention and interest in this presentation. If you have any questions, comments, or would like to discuss the model in more detail, I invite you to contact me via email at possmorales@imp.mx. You can also submit your question or feedback directly through the conference platform, and I will be happy to respond. Again, thank you for watching, and I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation.